let's be transparent here. BJ told us we needed to be 30 minutes. We already broke that. We really did. Let's be totally transparent. We were trying to be short, and it didn't happen.
I blame it on the weed. I forgot to add the music up unders, but we'll do that. Anyway, this is Concerned Citizens. We're going to go around the horn and introduce ourselves, starting at the bottom with you, Mr. Hill.
I'm Chris Hill. I'm a local agent in Southern Maryland, the incoming president for Maryland Association of Realtors, and I'm a concerned citizen of St. Mary's County. Do you like that?
Nice.
Simple.
I'm Brandon Russell. I ran for county commissioner last year. Been following local politics for the last at least 5 years, and I'm a concerned citizen of St. Mary's County. I feel like this is like we're at the podium, and I'm an alcoholic or whatever. No disrespect to that, but I am a concerned citizen.
I don't know. This might be a vice similar to alcoholism. So
you might be right.
Well, my name is BJ Hall, and I also ran for county commissioner this past year, and I am the founder of Reach Back and Lift One. It's a local nonprofit focused on connecting the under-resourced to resources that can help them earn a living wage here in Southern Maryland. So that is the hat that I will claim today, and we can keep it pushing. Just in an effort to help everyone get to know us, we're going to ask a series of random questions, and you can get to know us a little bit by our answers. We're going to go in the same order. I got the question of the day. Tell me something that is on your bucket list.
I knew, we joked about it a second ago because BJ just threw us this curveball right before we went on here. But
what?
I think it wasn't in our planning session. There are 14-hour planning session. My bucket list, as we said earlier, is to have a bucket list. I don't think I really have a bucket list. I mean, I probably want to spend some time in Europe.
Ooh, what part of Europe?
I don't know, maybe like Paris, England.
Okay. Have you ever gone?
Nope.
So it's mandatory if you've never gone, you have to stop at London and Amsterdam. I'm just saying.
That's just the two places I have to stop at.
Brandon, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think mine is travel too. I've never been to Europe either, but I would say my bucket list trip is probably going to Egypt and seeing the pyramids, and hopefully I'll be able to do that at some point. They're kind of unsafe over there with some civil unrest and various things that they have going on, but yeah, I definitely want to do that at some point in my lifetime.
Very cool.
Roger that. You have to make sure that you get that cool picture where you put your finger on the top of
the That's right.
Funny how everybody knew what you're talking about.
We've all got that friend.
Right.
My bucket list. I want to fly a plane. Yeah. So I mean, and cool. I'm working on it. So hopefully I can get that one checked off here in the next year and a half. Like, I want to fly my own plane. Let me say that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Everything.
That takes it up a notch.
Yeah. So just saying that you flew a plane, that's not much. But saying that I flew one that's owned by BJ Hall, yeah. Let's make that happen.
A pretty cool one.
And then we can get our flight to Europe and Egypt.
So mine is gonna be a local commuter. You
gotta aim big, BJ.
All right. We'll make something happen just to help you all with your bucket list. I'm that kind of friend. I'm that kind of friend.
You're a giver.
All right. So this week, looking at the numbers, the House, they have almost given us 1,600 pieces of legislation. 1,266 of 1,598 to be exact. 1,266 of those were actually dealing with the law, and the Senate 1,262, without including the the bond bills, we had 939 from this on the Senate side. So I mean, they're putting out a lot this
Yes.
year. And anything that comes out now is going to be on the emergency side. But and I think that they've got all the heavy hitters out on the floor already. So we'll keep an eye on anything major that's released. I think most of the things that we'll attack moving forward will just be things that we hear about that have good committee sessions, or when they return to the floor, they have good arguments on the floor. That's when it's going to get real fun. We're gonna have to steal. We're gonna have to steal some clips down from YouTube and splice those in. So that's because I'm sure that we're gonna have some of our local delegates fighting the good fight,
Oh,
especially for like our bond bills and possibly against that 447. So that's gonna be real fun to watch over the next month.
It is gonna be fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. We're gonna start with cannabis. We've touched on it last week a little bit. But this week we want to go a little more in depth because we had an opportunity to read more. They actually have the fiscal note out. They put the fiscal and policy note out, so you can get the more in depth analysis there, and it's a better summary. It's more user friendly if you're actually going in and reading bills, because those bills are not necessarily the easiest things to read, but they give a nice little breakdown of what they're expecting on the revenue side, and a good summary of what the cannabis bill is intended to how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to impact the state. One thing that I did notice when I did a search for cannabis, they had 15 bills out that were that were addressing cannabis related issues. Yeah. Did y'all get a chance to look at those?
I looked
at I think 3 or 4 that had to do with just like criminal law portion of it.
Roger that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at 280. And that was that was adjusting some criminal to civil penalties, some criminal penalties to civil penalties, and then 980. I thought that one was really interesting. HB 980, and that one is actually intended to prevent someone that was on pretrial, released for pretrial, from getting that pretrial status revoked, and if you were on probation, having your probation revoked, if you actually came up hot for cannabis use on the urinalysis.
Yeah.
So it
included parole too in that 980.
Yeah, that's been an initiative for the governor as well. So I mean, I think this is gonna. I mean, one of those is gonna find. I'm not sure this bill we're talking about, HB 556, does as much of that, really, right? The legal stuff. I don't think it's doing that at all.
No, the other one I looked at, which I think is going to be an interesting process to watch, is 1071, and that is the reasonable suspicion bill. And so that basically says that reasonable suspicion cannot be based solely on odor, possession, or suspicion of possession, or presence of money, like having money close to cannabis. So I'm interested to see how the debate kind of, works out surrounding that, because that is a very, I'm not sure what the right word is.
Can't say blunted. No.
Yeah, I already used that already. I already used that one, but it's a very interesting topic in that I think that people will have pretty deliberate points of view on how that can actually work out in the real world.
How do you guys? Let me ask you guys. What do you think of this? Do you think there's a negative or a positive impact from HB 556 to our community as a whole?
To me, I think, listening to the debates, I mean, like once you actually listen to the hearings, I know it was only 2-minute snippets, but there were a lot, hours of 2-minute snippets. There were a lot of things that I never considered. one thing that I never considered was thinking about it as supply the supply and demand piece of it.
Mm,
And because we have a certain amount of growers in um the a certain amount of growers that are already up and running, some a certain amount of growers that already have license that haven't even opened and start releasing marijuana into the supply. And you have the cost the cost impact of having excessive supply. And then once you have once that balances out,
mm,
once you balance that out, um it's going to be very interesting, just to kind of see how the market is impacted, what which ones get put out of businesses. I mean, get put out of business. Um, how many licenses can this market actually handle? What
mm.
Because we don't know, we're kind of guessing and testing at this point. It was like we kind of had an idea initially, but we still haven't gotten to full capacity yet. So
Right.
saying that we need more licenses, and the last thing we need is a lot of empty grow facilities out here, just kind of taking up space. It's like we got a lot of vacant areas already, and we got a lot of people that are unhappy with some of the existing facilities. The last thing you need is just having one that's just sitting there vacant because it was pushed out of business because we didn't have a good understanding of the potential market. So I mean, I'm thinking about it. I've been thinking about that all weekend. I'm sorry.
No, it's funny. It's like
Yeah.
I tried to prepare myself after reading the bill and know a little bit more about what the impacts of these kinds of things have, and it's not all rosy, right? You know what I mean? That's the thing. I mean, like, crime, serious crime around neighborhoods that had dispensaries went up in Colorado, for instance. Serious crimes around dispensaries, right? And this is neighborhoods that had it without, went up from 26 to 1,452%. Like
Mm,
crazy. And that concerns me, right? Like just thinking, but it doesn't. It's not that's not the trump card for me, right? But the one that got me, one statistic that got me that I thought, and this was by the University of Colorado, did a study on Academy of Criminal Justice Science, something like that. Um, Use of minors from the ages of 12 to 17 is 43% higher than it was then.
mm,
And then Colorado is the first state it has the highest. Colorado has the highest percentage of adults in drug treatment too, which is a whole nother question. But
Mm,
but I don't want to. I don't want to. I'm trying to be open minded about it, right?
yeah.
Like, and not be that guy. So let me put that out there. I don't want to be that guy, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff around this that I think is important, and we don't just it's hard to get it right the first time, but there's a lot going
yeah.
on here.
Yeah. I think, BJ's point about the supply and demand piece of all this is very valid. I mean, I remember, watching the news when it was legalized in Colorado, and they were saying that, the demand was so high, people were waiting in lines,
Right.
at dispensaries because they just couldn't meet the demand. Um, so that's a very real thing that could happen here as well. And I think some of the stats that you read off, Chris, I think those are concerning, but I also think that they kind of highlight things that maybe are issues anyway that our society is just not dealing with, you know? And I think, trying to figure out how to implement something like this and keep what I guess we would consider vulnerable people, people prone to addiction or children, safe from this, from this is, it's a tall ask.
Yeah.
And I also think that, I'm wondering how they're going to regulate some of just daily activity with this.
Right.
The big talking point, in the county, at least that I saw from people, is that we have the base here and it's still federally illegal, but if it's legal in the state, how does that line up, and how does it affect people who may have to take a drug test for a federal job, and all of these different pieces. So I don't know. I think that there are going to be some net positives. Obviously we're going to get revenue out of this, which is always good. We can put that hopefully towards something that's going to make a difference. But outside of that big talking point about the revenue, I don't really see what on the local level we're going to get out of this that is going to improve our community. Hopefully some of that revenue can be directed in a way that will, but I guess only time will tell.
One thing I like for people to consider is it's not really new crime. It's relocated crime. So now when you consider a lot, because drug dealers get robbed every day, and now, but that's attacking the black market, and a lot of those crimes are not necessarily reported. So you can't report
Right.
those. So it's like you see an increase of reported crime because now these establishments are now legal, right? So when you start thinking about when you start thinking about this the increase, it may not necessarily be an increase in real crime. Does that make sense to you?
I'm going to tell you, this is the one thing that got me when we talked about this last week. One of the things was, that, it would, you mentioned, BJ, it would be kind of like applying the financial resources to the police would be kind of like, not really a good move. But the way more I think about it, like, this is another stat that I saw that I wrote over here that I wanted to keep, and I found it very interesting. Marijuana related traffic deaths in Colorado were up 75%. That's huge. Like, and that means, maybe there is a need for police involvement and that money, those resources, because there's a problem, right?
But but that's one of those. I don't know how much the police would be able to assist there, because I don't know how many. Because where does where do the police help in that? Because if it's legal to consume it, now you're just talking about somebody being
that's
right.
Right.
But it's one of those. You trying to tell me that it's 75% more users now?
Yeah, I did. That was a stat that came. I want to make sure that I don't, speak out of turn either, like give you the wrong information. That was something I got this. There was something that came here from the Hudson Institute too. It's actually a great article if you guys get a chance, called "The Colorado Experiment: Legalized Marijuana's Impact on Colorado." It's a really, really good article. Well done. There's and it's got tons of statistics in it. Too many for me, right? Like my little brain can't handle it. But it was funny. I scanned through it and I'm like, there's some serious impacts to our local community that we need to make sure that these bills don't overstep that, right? Like, because it's a social issue that people see that's, important to a lot of people, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good for our community, really,
I think with the local piece of it too, I mentioned in the last time we talked about this that during the commissioner's discussion about this, there was a question about can they limit local on-site use, and that is something that according to this law they can do. But I think if we're concerned about things like that, we also need to be concerned about or limiting cannabis facilities or dispensaries in general. If we're concerned about that, then we also need to be concerned about, why do we have a vape shop on every corner in the county now? All of these things that are permeating the county. This is not necessarily a one column, one silo conversation. This kind of all weaves together. So,
right.
So I think that it's very important to just kind of take a look at, how in general, how businesses that are coming to the county are going to impact the county, even outside of just them being a cannabis dispensary or grower.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. The only thing I have a fundamental belief that, like, if you have a business, you should be if you think that business is good for for you and you're going to do well, you should be able to, if there's a building there, you should be able to buy it, that you got that entrepreneurial spirit, you should be able to open up your business and do what you got to do. Because what would happen is if it's needed, it will succeed. If it's not, it will fail. Right. And that's the truth. And unfortunately, that's why we have a vape shop on every corner, because guess what? They're succeeding.
There's demand. Yep.
Demand, right? Same thing BJ just said earlier, right? The demand is there. So it's like liquor stores, and gas stations, right? Liquor stores and gas stations.
I was thinking about that when you were talking. When you look at the about the impact on our area, the combined impact, looking at not just cannabis use, but now you have legal use of alcohol and cannabis, right? So because it's, I mean, I doubt if somebody's just smoking a joint and then all of a sudden now there's an issue with impaired driving. I'm assuming that may have been included.
Right.
That they're the reason why they were stopped may have had something that may have been influenced by alcohol consumption as well. And so if you kind of combine both of those, I mean, what is the overall impact with having both of those legalized in the area? Every time I started thinking about these drugs, I started thinking about depressants versus stimulants, and I'm like, which ones are legal? I was like, we have a couple of depressants legal now, but nothing on the stimulant side to balance it out. But
That's good.
no, I mean, we could probably beat this one to death, but the one place that I think that we haven't really talked, does anybody have the numbers for the licenses again, like readily available?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got them here.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, standard grower, maximum up to, was it 75? Standard processor 100, standard dispensary 300. And these are the max numbers? Are these including the ones that are already in existence?
I think
that is a good question.
I think it's including the ones that are in existence. I could be wrong, but I thought it was.
I would think so too, because I remember during the commissioner meeting they were talking about this, and they said there would be 400 additional. So if you take the standard and micro dispensary at 500 total, then I think that would include what is already out there.
Roger that. And so I'm thinking about it from the grower's perspective. I was like, how many additional? Because I think they had 24, so it's almost like an additional 50. I mean, this is a lot of increased participation. We do need to pay attention to some of this, because if you just look at because ours haven't even, the one that's online here, well, that's set to be online here in the county, hasn't even started production. So. Right. I mean, we have a dispensary here, but we don't even have the grow facility online. And I'm like, if they add another 50, and what was supposed to happen, using the legislation from the medical marijuana, they were supposed to have a period of time where these existing facilities were supposed to be the only ones in the market. And so, like, to come a couple of years after all of them are up and running, and triple the number, that's a bit unfair to the people who thought that they would have a significant presence in the recreational market.
Well, and then they have to pay a fee also. Ooh. if they're gonna start cultivating for recreational and medical. I mean, I'm talking, they have different stages, but it could be up to $2.5 million for a fee if your revenue is 20 million or more. So this is not cheap.
Yeah, and they don't have the same tax benefits as regular businesses because they fall under a code, an IRS code that limits what they can write off. So I mean, it's it's an interesting thing, because I think we kind of make assumptions that everything is extremely profitable, but I'm not sure that it is yet. It's like they're still waiting on that federal shoe to drop.
Right.
All right. So one thing that we did leave off of our agenda last week, there was a conversation, well, a hearing on HB 359. Brandon, can you go into give us a little more detail about 359?
Sure. So this is called the Save Women's Sports Act. And essentially what it would do is it would require both public and non-public schools to maintain sports teams separated by biological sex, male or female, or to designate sports teams as co-educational or a mixed team sport. And this is specifically for varsity and junior varsity sports in the schools. And the other thing it does is it also kind of gives license or the ability for anyone who feels they may have been discriminated against or not given the chance to participate in the sport that they want to because somebody else took the spot, a trans person, for example. It gives the person who lost out on that spot legal recourse to sue the school system.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that is essentially what this bill does. It came up, I think, I don't know, the 21st maybe, or no, it's not even the 21st. Last week. I'm like, what day is it?
Yeah.
It came up last week for a hearing. It didn't get a favorable report coming out of committee, so I don't think it's ultimately going to go anywhere. But just my thoughts on this bill in general. This is something that has been done in other states. I think 17 or 18 other states have this in place. And basically it does exclude a trans individual from participating in sports. So it kind of, discriminates against them in that way. And I think, during the testimony, there was a lot of examples cited about, scientific reasons why this should be the case, and instances that happened in other states where, someone did not win a championship title or win, something because there was a trans athlete in the class that they were participating in. But there's no, at least if we focus just on Maryland, right, there is no example that shows that this is an issue in Maryland.
Yeah.
It could happen. Anything could happen. But the other part of this too is that there have been organizations like the NCAA and another one too. I think the International Olympic Committee is what it is, that have allowed trans athletes to participate since 2004. So we're talking that's 20 years. And this is just now over the last couple of years kind of become a topic of conversation. And the way that I kind of feel about this is that, I think trans people have been really used as a weapon in political conversation to kind of divide people. And this sports issue is just the latest variation of that. Prior to this, it was all about bathrooms and whether or not you could use a bathroom depending on what gender you identified as. And there was a lot of really inflammatory language surrounding that point, and the same thing goes for this. So, I have a lot of very personal feelings about this, being a member of the LGBTQ community. And I don't want to, say that people are, being hateful or bigoted, but when I should be specific, when the delegates who support this bill say that this is an example of model legislation that has happened in other states, you also have to look at what's happened after this legislation passed in another state. And I'll give you an example. In Florida, the body that regulates high school sports is now talking where a bill of this type is legal in Florida, has passed. So the body that regulates high school sports is now considering making students go through genitalia inspection, and for girls, making them submit menstruation cycles as a part of their official school record to prove that they are able to participate in sports, in women's sports. So, if we're using this as a model legislation, it kind of concerns me where this could go.
Roger there. That's a bit extreme there.
Yeah. I'm going to Google. I'm going to be looking hard for that, because that seems so, ridiculous, honestly, to be honest with you, like that But
it does.
But look, I gotta say, I listened to that one too. Listen to that hearing, and there was some good rationales in my opinion. Like just like there, that's what we talked about earlier. There's you hear a lot of different sides here, and that's why I love what we're doing here, right? Like the three of us,
right.
Being open and honest about these things and listening to them. But there was some real good arguments why that bill 359 had some good merits, right? Like some good merits, and I don't know, I have personal beliefs on it too, right, Brandon? And I think that we need to, I guess maybe when I grew up, there was girls sports and boys sports, and then there were and there were co-ed sports. Sometimes we had co-ed basketball games and co-ed, and that sort of thing. And if we're going to a society of all co-ed, right, then we've got we're getting rid of the win-lose mentality if we do that, because it's gone, right? Like, because there's never, when we played co-ed sports, boys and girls, right? I'm just saying, let's say it was basketball, for example. The 6'4" guy on the team pretty much outperformed everybody, right? And the girls, didn't really have a chance, being real. I mean, some of them did, but they just didn't at that time. And by the way, I know I'm putting myself on a limb here, right, with this. I get it, okay? But that, I just don't think. I think fundamentally I have a problem with that, right? Like I feel like there's something that's not balanced there, and I do understand the idea of protecting girls' sports and boys' sports and making them,
Yeah. I hear what you're saying as well. I was like, when you think about where the argument comes from, if someone is just saying, hey, I'd like to make sure that that you're protecting the integrity of the sport, and I get that, but I'm kind of with Brandon on this one, where sometimes you have people use a talking point, where you're using a group of people as a talking point for to support a political agenda, and you're not really fixing a problem that exists. So if it's not something that we really need to be concerned with, then we're just arguing for no reason, so so it's, but if it is something that needs to be addressed, or we're trying to anticipate something that we see coming in the near future, I can understand it. But I have to be honest, I don't know if some wave of trans athletes coming into Maryland to adjust to create some type of competitive imbalance. So
yeah, and I think, and I heard someone mention during their testimony in favor of this bill, the talking point that male athletes are participating in male only sports, and then they're not doing well, so they're deciding, oh, okay, well, I'm going to identify as a trans female, and then I can participate with in women's sports, and maybe I'll get a win there. But I just don't think that's happening. And I think outside of all the talking points in general, and for me, what it really comes down to is, one, is this addressing a problem, like you said, BJ? Is this really addressing an issue that's actually happening, that is being harmful to someone? And if it's not, then two, what are we doing here? Is it coming from a place of being respectful of different types of people, and wanting to create kind of an inclusive environment for kids participating in sports? Or is it coming from, we or I, whoever you are, don't agree with this type of lifestyle or life choice, and we don't want this type of person engaged in activities with our children? There's a lot of layers to this, but I think what it comes down to for sure is, this is not solving an issue in our state, and I think that there are plenty of other issues that could be better focused on, that would not be taking time away, that we should not be taking time away from things like this at this present time.
Roger that. Yeah, I wish we had a lot more time and a lot more data to kind of process on this one, because I never want to tell someone that they're not addressing an issue without really doing some research. But it almost seemed like this is a narrative that's been created outside of the state, and we're just carrying it on here in Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you think of those things and you wonder if they're. I hear what you're saying. Actually, I do. I mean, look, I'm a firm believer. You should be able to do mostly what you want to do, as long as you're not hurting other people to do it, right? Like, I mean, that's
right.
Get it, right? That being said, I mean, like, that hurting other people piece is kind of in limbo for me in this one, right? Like, because the potential's there, I guess. If you have a trans weightlifter competing in women's weightlifting, and there may be a body mass difference that's significant, it could impact it, right? I mean, let's be real, it could. I'm not saying it does, and it has.
That's a horrible example, because there's weight classes, but I'm just saying. Well, I mean, I'm messing. I'm joking.
No, I hear you, but I don't know that this is something that and like you said, it got an unfavorable response anyway. So I mean, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. But it is a conversation, right? Like, it's a conversation for us to have and talk about. I learn something new every single day, right? And I don't have to agree to learn something about it,
I think
sorry.
I was just going to say real quick, I think the person who gave testimony from the organization Strong Schools Maryland was answering a question. It might have been from Delegate Buckle, about, what do you say to the point that a trans athlete is taking away an opportunity from someone else participating in that sport? And her answer was, why are we narrowly focused on the opportunities that are there now instead of expanding opportunity for everyone? And that really stuck with me, because it's not something that I thought about right off the top of my head. And it's a very valid point. If we're looking to expand opportunities for everyone, then that's where we should be coming from. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
No, I hear you.
That's actually a good response.
It is.
It was. That's why I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put that in my hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of these days, what we need to do is maybe what we can do is kind of pull some of the good topics from the session and get some subject matter experts from each opposing view to come talk with us, so we can be more informed, because some of these more controversial issues may not pass this go round, but a lot of them are introduced in
back
future session. And so if it's something that's continually being introduced to it would be good for us to be more informed the next time we see the bill.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
All right, gentlemen.
Yes.
I think we have consumed enough of your night.
All right, let's be real. Let's be transparent here. BJ told us we needed to be 30 minutes. We already broke that. We really did. Let's be totally transparent. We were trying to be short, and it didn't happen.
I blame it on the weed. It's like every time it's something about that weed that gets me to chatting, and I almost grab a bag of chips.
I mean,
oh no, not again.
It's coming back. It's coming back.
Oh boy.
All right, gentlemen. You all be safe, and we'll chat again next week.
See you then.
Yeah, see you then.